So like I was saying, the deadline for filing income tax returns has ended today. The number of ITRs filed have been growing every passing year. And according to the websites of the government, more than 6.5 crore income tax returns have been filed till now, of which over 5.23 crore income tax returns have been verified. More than 7% new filers have been registered this year. So does this mean that the country, with more than 140 crore population now, becoming more tax compliant, or is this only still a drop in the big ocean? How does it reflect in our economic growth? Before we start that discussion, let's bring in my colleague Harsh. He's joining us here in our Mumbai studios. Harsh, looking at the numbers and the kind of rise that we are seeing in recent times in the kind of filings, the number of filings of income tax returns, the income tax department should be a happy lot, wouldn't you say?
So what we're seeing largely is around 7 odd crore returns being filed in financial year 2023. That's, when I'm looking at the larger context, 140 crore Indians, that's a meager 5% in terms of the total population. So it's quite a small number in relative terms, but India is known to have a very small number of people filing income tax returns. Also, with regard to income tax registrations done, there are around 11.5 crore registered income tax profiles anyway. So on that 7 crore number, not too large, but not too bad either. In the recent past, what we've also seen is a mad rush on the last day for people to file their income tax returns. Now, overall, in the larger context, what tends to happen is that there have been times when the income tax website has actually crashed. But over the last couple of years, that has not happened. And that's really the telling part, that most likely, it seems even this time around, given that it's happening seamlessly, it is possible that 31st July will be the deadline day, and that will not be extended either. So given all of this, of course, these are the larger facts coming in, pouring in, and this time Income Tax Department also providing that data and information on a real-time basis with regard to how many returns are being filed and how active the website actually is.
Well, the website is active, there's no doubt about that, and we've been watching some of those tweets going out as well, sometimes about how people are finding it difficult to file their returns on the last day. And of course, they waited that long to file their returns, and sometimes you'd hear the department say you shouldn't wait that long. But to break down the larger aspects of income tax returns, let's speak to international tax expert. TP Oswal is joining us, along with partner at Deloitte, Tapati Ghose is with us. And Naveen Wadhwa as well, the Vice President for Research and Advisory at Taxman. Great to have you all with us this evening. Tapati, Ghose, to you first. In your experience, how would you define the graph of income tax returns filing in India? What are the significant highs and lows that you've noticed in recent times? And perhaps the reasons as well that you'd offer to explain the highs and lows that you've seen.
First of all, let me go to your last question. I think the government has done a lot to make it easy for us to file our tax returns. The income tax portal is extremely advanced, carries a lot of information with respect to our financial data, be it in connection with interest, be it in connection with any purchase, sale of shares, for instance, mutual funds, for instance. So it's become much more easy to file a tax return, and hence you would expect more compliance. And of course, there is so much more governance, I would say, around the matter. If you don't file your return, there is the likelihood of getting a notice from the department because they are monitoring the kind of transactions you have, the kind of assets that you have, and so on. And one can expect a notice to explain why you haven't filed a return. And of course, over the last month or so, if you haven't filed a return, there's been a lot of this prodding that you get on your email, on your WhatsApp to see if you haven't filed your return, or basically messages, please file so now and don't wait for the last date. So compliance would definitely increase, But as I just heard Harsh mentioning, it's just a blip in the ocean. We have a significant population in India, and are all returns getting filed if you have taxable income? That is something that needs to be that government is going to be looking out for
Yes,
more
indeed.
and more.
Absolutely. So, while compliance is growing, is it growing at a fast enough clip to match the growth aspirations of the economy? Naveen, Wadhwa, as far as the middle class is concerned, though compliance is going up, they seem to be overburdened. They're fighting inflation. They are looking at higher compliance as well. And one of the key elements has always been the cornerstone of filing tax returns, the ease with which one can do it. Technology is helping, but has that improved substantially? Or we have long ways to go on that count, where the burden on the taxpayer is reduced, both on the amount of taxes and the ease with which returns are filed?
Yeah, definitely the compliance burden has increased a lot on the taxpayers. So when a normal taxpayer is taking a step further and he's earning different kind of money, just take an example. So if you're a salaried person and it's been very easy to invest in the foreign stock market. So if you have made any investment in the foreign stock market, believe me, it would be the toughest time for you to file your return of income. And finding a multi-bagger stock is easier than filing your scheduled FA in ITR forms. So this is the main problem. As long as you have to file your return in ITR 1, would be very easy for a salaried person to comply with the return obligations, return filing obligations. But if you have to file your return in ITR 2 and ITR 3, this is very, very difficult. And without taking assistance of a chartered accountant or a tax advocate, you can't file your return of income without making any mistake in your return. So that's number one. I would like to add one more point. So why there is an increase in return filing over the year if we compare with the last year. So if you look at the budget amendment made every year, so every year the government announces, adds 2 to 3 provisions in the TDS. So as of now, we have 40 plus TDS section, so which requires the payer to deduct tax from your income. If you look at all the kind of income we earn, so we notice that most of them are subject to the TDS. So the more TDS are there, the more return filing would be required, because I have to claim the refund of my excess taxes deducted by the payer. So this is the main reason that there is a sudden surge in the compliance requirement. And this is a duplicacy in the efforts on the part of government. First, they collect the tax and then they ask the taxpayer to file the return and refund the amount. So government has to find out the way. They have to. So currently, if your income is above the exemption limit, which is just 2.5 lakh, it is mandatory for you to file the return of income, even if your tax, you don't need to pay any tax till 5 lakh rupees. And now from next year onward, it would be 7 lakh. So the government will have to find out the way how they can reduce the compliance burden on the, at least on the salary taxpayers.
Mr. Oswal, you agree? Because I remember our conversations in the past as well, where you say it's far from easy for the common man to file their tax returns. Is the process becoming any easier, or is it getting more complicated? Because compliance is high, but at this point in time, when technology is going to be such a huge help, do we need to ease out the entire process much more to be able to get a larger number of people in the tax net? Are we doing that convincingly enough?
You see, we are getting larger number of people in the tax net, no doubt. What Naveen was explaining, that there are 40 sections in the Income Tax Act where the TDS is tax has to be deducted at source by the payer to the recipient of the income or recipient of the even non-income portion of some of the amounts. For example, if you are, and TCS provision apart from that, for example, you buy a car, your dealer has to deduct tax at source, tax collected at source. So it means without there being an income, you have to also pay the tax and then claim the refund. For example, if you are making, foreign remittances, which are not coming under that LTS, then in that case, you also have to pay the 20% tax, liberalized remittance scheme, LRS, then 20% tax from 1st of July. So that becomes a huge burden on the taxpayer. Now, of course, the system has been fairly advanced now. you get the refund very soon. In 90% of the taxpayers' cases, refunds are generally, we found that it is received in 1 or 2 weeks after filing of return. Interestingly, our experience shows we filed the return a day before yesterday in one of the taxpayers, and yesterday we got a query that there are some non-compliances on your part, so rectify that. We have to send an objections, and that too limited in the limited space of the objection which is given to us. And this has been repetitively same objection every year which we get it, and we reply to that, and they drop the assessment procedure because this is done mechanically. There is no application of mind, and it is a faceless. But the question is, technology has improved substantially. You have AS26 and TIS, AIS and TIS information which government gathers because of the various provisions of income tax where the tax is deducted at source, where you are making payment because of your use of PAN number or your use of phone number. And because of that, the payments are received and the information is received by the government, on which the taxpayer has to look into that information before filing his return of income. And that becomes an onerous job. You know, in case if suppose you are filing tax form number 1, as somebody had explained earlier, it is very easy because that is only case of salaried employees. But if you have business income, then form number 2, 3, 4, then it becomes little more onerous.
Correct.
And suppose if you are doing a transactions on a share market, and the share market transactions are quite number of transactions you do over the year, every transaction is reported and you have to tally it yourself.
That's right.
And if you do not tally with your bank account, then there will be a questions asked, and then there will be notices issued to you.
Right.
And therefore, job of filing return is not that easy. You have to take help of a chartered accountant or the tax lawyer to tally the information and then fill up the return of income.
Do tell us, Tapati, Ghose, because both gentlemen are pointing towards the role of a CA. Of course, there has to be that focus on saving taxes, not evading taxes, but saving them. And perhaps a good gauge of any CA would be how well these taxes are planned. In your understanding, how are they doing in terms of helping their clients save taxes? Because that is also a big enough need, isn't it?
That's true. And then you get back to the question of whether you want to save taxes by making investments, by incurring such some expenditures that would possibly give you your ATC benefits, your ATD benefits, or even on certain incomes that you earn, for instance, your interest income and so on. Or you want to opt for the easy way out and opt for the simplified tax regime, where you don't really have to, collate all of this documentation and so on. You pay tax at a lower rate, and then your tax liability may come down. But again, it depends on a case-to-case kind of a situation, because somebody may have a significant amount of deductions and reliefs that may ultimately, under the regular tax regime, give them a lower tax to be paid. So this is something that you can't do on the last date for sure. You have to plan it well in advance, see what works out better based on an estimated income, estimated deductions and reliefs, and then decide which one works for you. Because you can't opt for the new regime if you are filing a belated return after the 31st of July. So yes, a fair amount of planning is
required. But is that being done? Naveen, Wadhwa, when you're talking to your clients, how prepared do they come when they are trying to plan their taxation? They're trying to save taxes. How exactly does it work from your end? Because as far as knowledge is concerned, it's all available online. They have to look it up. But like many of you are pointing out, it is a complicated process. It's not something that the common man can understand at one go. You require the help of experts like yourself. How are they going about it to be able to plan their taxes better? Because there is a large number of people who are still waiting for that last day to file their returns?
So I'll not talk about the last year. I'll talk about the current year, the ongoing year.
Yes.
So believe me, from this year onwards, the investment, the saving would be only relevant for the upper class, the taxpayers who are earning above 7 lakh rupees. Why I'm saying so? So if you're earning up to 7 lakh rupees, you don't have any motivation to invest in ATC instruments or in any other like housing loan, because you up to 7 lakh rupees of your income would be now tax free because of the new tax regime. So if you're earning about 7 lakh rupees, there is no motive, there is no reason for you to go into the new tax regime if you have some money to make an investment in, be it in a new house property or mutual fund or insurance policies. So yes, if you're earning above 7 lakh rupees, you can definitely afford a tax consultant or investment consultant who can help you plan your investment journey, right? So this is the reason. And I have seen generally that the salaried person who have just started their career, they are not keen about making an investment. They are basically more into the consumption than the investment. And when it comes the year end, I've seen many people claiming bogus expenditure, bogus deductions. So, and in this scenario, when the government has got all your financial transaction in your AIS, and it's become easy for the department to reconcile all the information you are sharing in your ITR and the information available with the income tax department. So yes, how would I conclude? The investment, if you're earning above 7 lakh rupees, would be a motivation for you to make an investment. If you're earning 7 lakh rupees, you would be more keen in making a consumption, and that's what the government is looking for. They do not want to increase the investment as far as the households are concerned. They want you to increase your consumption so that it returns to the economy.
Mr. Oswal, between the old and the new tax regime, is it beneficial to have both of them running alongside?
No, you cannot have both running side by side. If you have got any income other than salary people can shift from one scheme to another scheme every year. There is no problem. But if you have business income, once you have chosen a particular scheme, it is the default scheme. It will apply to you. And therefore, it is better that you plan before opting for a particular scheme. And by default, the one particular scheme is applicable to all the taxpayer. And the rate of tax in a highest bracket has come down from 42.7% to 39%. Whereas in other cases, one has to calculate, looking at the benefits which are available under various sections, particularly ATC, ATD, and all other sections, whether investment related, expenditure related, and then find out whether his income is subject to tax at a lower rate, or if he opts for the new scheme, his rate of tax will be lower. And he has to take a judgmental call himself or with the consultant's help. But in case of high tax payers, high net worth taxpayers, certainly, in my opinion, they will not bother about taking meager deductions which are available under Chapter 6A. And therefore, they will definitely opt for the new regime, and that is under Income Tax Act. Unless you have taken a housing loan very substantial for buying a property and you have let out the property, whole of the interest is deductible expenditure. And of course, that will not be impacted because that deduction does not come under Chapter 6A. And therefore, as I said earlier, you need to weigh your possibilities under the Income Tax Act through an expert's advice. And that requires chartered accountant's help. And people are trying to do themselves.
Yes.
Very recent experience we had, people were trying to do the process themselves, salaried employees.
And was it easy?
But a lot of other investment income they have. So they had ultimately come to us on the last day.
Right.
Sir, please help us.
Yes. Still on the last day. And according to the Section 234F of the Income Tax Act of 1961, Naveen Wadhwa, anyone who files their ITRs late must pay a fine of up to 5,000 rupees. The small taxpayers, they may pay a fine of 1,000 rupees if their annual taxable income is less than 5 lakhs. You think these fines are enough? As far as compliance is concerned, you need to put the fear of life with these fines on them to make sure that you have higher compliance? Naveen, that was for you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So this is one of the consequences. So there are a lot more consequences. Not just the fees under Section 234F. You will have to pay interest under Section 234A. You would lose if you are entitled to interest on the refund amount. You would lose a portion of the interest payable to you on the refund amount. If you have any losses, you would definitely lose those. Won't be able to carry forward those losses. Then there is a penalty. Then there is a prosecution. There are a lot of consequences on you, and the government is very clear. And generally, we Indians are not bound to make all these compliances until and unless there is some severe consequences on us. So this is the reason the government want us to be obedient citizens, so that this is our obligation to file the return of income and give a complete declaration of all our taxable income. So yes, I do believe 234F is little rigorous for someone who has been to a genuine problem for not filing return of income. So yes, and currently we do not have any provision to ask for a waiver of those fees. So sometimes it could be little regressive. Otherwise, I feel this is required to ensure that all taxpayers file their return of income on time.
Tapati, Ghose, we're also looking at the growth of GST, which is one of the newest laws when it comes to taxation in the country. And of course, it has been reformative to a large extent. What are the lessons that have been learned in GST that perhaps one could imbibe in ITR filing, something that the government may perhaps consider?
Well, a couple of things that come to mind is, where there is a GST implication with regard to, renting out property, GST implications for some of the expenses that you incur. And that is also going into the tax department's portal. And there could be, an alignment that the government will look at in terms of the income that you are filing versus whatever is getting stored in the department's portal from the indirect tax perspective. So there is a lot of, a reconciliation of data that is happening on the tax department's technology platform that one needs to be aware of, and you should be aligned in all respects, really.
And how alignment is going to help, how digital technology is going to help as far as compliance goes, and how the tax net is going to get in more people in times to come, because that's going to define growth for the economy, is something that we are watching very closely. Today, the 31st of July, the last day for filing income tax returns. Thank you indeed, Tapati, Ghose, Naveen, Wadhwa, and Mr. Oswal for joining us on this discussion here on India Development Debate.